orientation, and here we go. I don't know how much of this you've seen before. I guess we'll find out. Parent functions and transformations. I know you've seen these types of graphs before, and each of these has a name. This would be a constant where it has the horizontal straight line, and the equation would look like this. It would be, specifically for this one, y equals like 3. It makes that straight line. Oh, I didn't realize you couldn't see what I just wrote.
Are we going to need colored pencils again today?
No, you don't, unless you want to. Then linear means straight line, and the parent function for this, the OG, it goes through 0. So this would be the parent function for linear. Linear just means straight line, but the parent function specifically goes through 0 and has a slope of 1. Then absolute value looks like this, and we got those graphs yesterday when we were plugging in numbers and doing like the input-output. Let me see if I can find the example. At the bottom of your paper, we graphed these, and to get this graph, we were plugging in numbers to get this shape. But on this lesson, we're going to be looking at like what this equation consists of and modifying it based on that. Same thing, except we don't have to plug in all the numbers all the time. So absolute value, the parent function goes through 0 and has a slope of 1 or up 1 over 1 in both directions. Then for quadratic, when you have y equals x squared, it creates this thing like this. So the parent function goes through 0 and has a stretch of 1, and we'll look at that as well. So what we're doing today is comparing this to the parent functions and looking at how these equations change how that looks. General form for absolute value is right here. And then this would be for quadratic. So the general form is the same. You might notice that it looks similar to y equals mx plus b, and it does. This right here is what we're going to be looking at first. This minus h right here is the movement left to right, and then k is movement up and down, and we'll get to that in a second. Right now, as I'm going over this, I'm kind of like going over like plays, I guess, but until you actually practice the play, you're probably not going to get it all the way. So as I go through this information just in this top part, just know I'm just like going over plays, but we're actually going to practice the plays, and that's when you'll actually completely understand it. Yes, thank you. And then, yeah. Okay, so rules for transformation of linear functions. Horizontal shift, that is going to be h. And so when you have x plus h, it's going to move to the left h units. And then x minus h, we're going to shift to the right h units. And that seems kind of backwards because plus on the coordinate plane is usually to the right, but it's actually to the left. But again, we'll practice it. Vertical shift, the variable they use is k. So that would be your up and down. So just like with y equals mx plus b, this plus k is like your y-intercept. It's whether it's going up or down.
I did this last year, right?
Did you? I don't know.
Yeah, I think we did this in geometry last year.
Is there somebody that's never seen this? Some people? I don't know. Okay. Next, reflection. If it's a negative coefficient, like this, it reflects across the x-axis. We don't come across this today, so we don't have to worry about that. And then vertical stretch and compress. Honestly, this is kind of like slope, but a little bit different, and you'll see why when we get to the examples. So an example of a stretch vertically might be like 2, 3, or 4. So that would be like up 2 over 1, or up 3 over 1, or up 4 over 1. And then a compress vertically, this is when you have something in between 0 and 1. So like 1/2 or 1/3. 1/4. I think of like slope again, up 1 over 4 would look like this, or up 1 over 3, or up 1 over 2. It's kind of going that way. Oh, it's frozen. What? No, it can't. I'm totally jinxed again. I asked about printing money. I don't know. This place is like weird. It's so political, and I don't even know if you guys know what that means, because I didn't even know what that meant until I like worked here. It's like such like a game of Survivor, like where you're like strategizing who your friends are and who's on your team and administration, and like it is such a game. And so I went to my assistant principal, now that it's not even recording anyway, and I said, the printing money's really short. I handed him this construction packet, which I'm printing for my geometry classes. Actually, this isn't the whole thing. Let's see. Okay, let me find, oh, I don't even have an example of like how small it is. So I'm printing the construction packet, not there either, for my geometry classes. And it's like this big. It's like technically 4 pages, and we're doing constructions. I don't know if you remember from geometry, we're doing constructions like this.
It's frozen, I can't see.
It's still frozen? Jeez Louise.